Wall Street capped a 4-day winning streak as soft US inflation boosted odds of a Fed rate cut next week, while back home the Nifty hit a record before ending flat. Mid and small caps slid and IT emerged as the week's top gainer. The Fed's preferred inflation gauge rose to 0.2% in September, taking the annual rate to 2.8% below expectations and down from August. With personal income up 0.4% and spending up 0.3%, traders kept Fed cut odds near 87% ahead of policy decision. PM Modi and President Putin reaffirmed their North Star partnership, sealing pacts on energy, security, migration, ruble trade and joint defense production. Modi reiterated India's push for peace in Ukraine as both leaders vowed deeper counter-terror cooperation and set sights on crossing $100 billion in trade by 2030. India and US will kick off 3-day discussions on their proposed bilateral trade agreement from December 10. Reports suggest this is not formal negotiation round, but a crucial step as both sides push to seal the first phase of the pact. As the Indigo crisis deepens and other airlines profited from rising demand, the aviation ministry has proposed maximum fare limit after what it called an unreasonable surge in ticket prices. Economy class fares now cannot exceed 7,500 rupees for short routes and up to 18,000 for long-haul sectors. The DGCA is cracking the whip on Indigo, directs the airline to clear all pending passenger refunds by 8 p.m. today with zero delays and is mulling major punitive action. Sources say the regulator may even push for CEO's removal. Hello and welcome to News Now. I'm Ankur Mishra and next half an hour we'll touch base with all the news that's happening around. But let's get started with the Indigo fiasco. Looks like there is no relief for the distressed passengers. Around 1,800 flights have been cancelled in the past 4 days as people wait for hours, standing in long queues trying to get some clarity on their flight status. But the latest development is that Indigo officials have been summoned again and a crucial meeting is likely to take place. The government says some airlines were charging unusually high prices during the disruption, putting passengers under stress. A fresh directive now mandates strict adherence to newly prescribed fare caps across all routes. Samir Dikshit is joining with more details on the story on what are these caps and where does it apply.
Amid the Indigo fiasco, now the government may take some stern action against the Indigo management. What we are picking up from our sources that Indigo CEO may face action from the government side. He may be asked to step down. But not just Indigo CEO, it is also likely that some other officers who are there on the operation side, they might also face some sort of severe action as well. Including this, we have also seen that the regulator DGCA has constituted a 4-member inquiry committee that will submit its report on Indigo massive flight disruption within 15 days. And it is very likely that we may see some stern action from the government side, which may include hefty financial penalty action on the officers and even the downsizing of Indigo flight operations might also be there. But the biggest point is that Indigo CEO is now under question because the new FDTL norms, it was informed to the airlines almost a year back, but now Indigo has also acknowledged that they failed to prepare for this, and as a result, we have seen that the passengers faced a lot of inconvenience. Government is unhappy, and we might see some sort of action coming in for Indigo's management in coming days.
All right, Samir, we were also discussing the story about the fare cap. Now, what are these fare caps and why government has gone too late for passengers? Because we have seen the flight tickets touching as high as lakh.
Amid the Indigo fiasco, now the government may take some stern action against the Indigo management. What we are picking up from our sources that Indigo CEO may face action from the government side. He may be asked to step down. But not just Indigo CEO, it is also likely that some other officers who are there on the operation side, they might also face some sort of severe action as well. Including this, we have also seen that the regulator DGCA has constituted a 4-member inquiry committee that will submit its report on Indigo massive flight
All right, Samir, we'll come back to you. But even as government steps in and airlines scramble to take remedial steps, the chaos continues. And Isha gets us ground report from the Delhi airport. What exactly happened today?
Now, top sources have confirmed to Times Now that at 5 p.m. there will be a high-level meeting at the Ministry. The Civil Aviation Minister Ram Mohan Naidu will be there along with other senior officials. Indigo officials have now been summoned. However, the question is, Indigo has come up and apologized, but we're still at the ticketing counter. This is day 5, Hina. This is day 5. And you can still see small children. You can still see old people here who have been stranded here for hours. In fact, there are several angry passengers here as well. We'll have a conversation with some of them. But yes, the ministry has now cracked a whip. But the questions that the passengers are raising is that, is this too little too late, because their lives have completely been derailed. Sir, कितनी देर से यहाँ वेट कर रहे हैं?
लगभग 4 घंटे से।
अच्छा, कोई क्लैरिफिकेशन है उनसे? कितने बजे की फ्लाइट थी, कहाँ जा रहे थे?
8:40 पे बोला है कि आ जाएगा आपका फ्लाइट।
अच्छा, लेकिन रीस्केड्यूलिंग तो बार बार होती है।
अभी कुछ कंफर्म नहीं है, आएगा नहीं आएगा, बट 8:40 बोला है तो वेट तो करना ही है। आई हैव पेड फॉर द फ्लाइट, तो अभी वेट कर रहे हैं। बट मेरा क्वेश्चन एक ये भी है कि अगर इंडिगो में प्रॉब्लम है तो गवर्नमेंट को देखना चाहिए चीजें। गवर्नमेंट के पास करंट में लगभग डिजास्टर है, उनको अपने पायलट्स यहाँ पे लगाने चाहिए कि इंडिगो के फ्लाइट्स उड़ाए जाएं और वहां पे ट्रैवलिंग हो। बट ये सारी चीजें गवर्नमेंट नहीं कर रही है। गवर्नमेंट इज स्लीपिंग एंड ही इज एंजॉयिंग जस्ट।
सो हिना, एंग्री पैसेंजर्स हियर, पैसेंजर्स आर एंग्री विद द गवर्नमेंट। सर, आप इंडिगो की फ्लाइट ट्रैवल कर रहे हैं? कितनी घंटे से स्ट्रैंडेड है?
मेरी फ्लाइट थी 12 बजे, यहाँ अराइवल थी, 1 बजे पहुंची और मेरी कनेक्टिंग चली गई। इन्होंने मेरे को 2 बजे एक रीशेड्यूल करके टिकट दिया। जब बोर्डिंग पास लेने के गया हूँ तो बोलते हैं ये तो कैंसिल है, आपको कैसे टिकट इशू कर दिया है। उसके बाद ये लगेज के लिए 2 घंटे से पीछे पड़ा हूँ। अभी जाके हॉट होने के बाद मेरे को लगेज मिली है।
गुस्सा करना पड़ा आपको फिर?
ये तो हाल है।
और आप कितने साल के हैं अंकल?
68, 69।
All right, so too little, too late. Is it what the government action looks like? And to discuss the same, we have with us Jitendra Bhargav, former Executive Director, Air India. Mr. Bhargav, today government is, of course, have summoned the officials of Indigo, has also taken care of the airfares which were touching skies. But how do you assess the action which is being taken now?
First, can I clarify to what a passenger, irate passenger, the airport said? The defense fighter jet pilots cannot fly civil aircraft. For every aircraft, you require a designated license. So for anyone to come to a conclusion that the government should have deployed Indian Air Force fighter jet pilots to fly Indigo aircraft is a wrong assumption. Cannot be done. Now, coming to the point, well, yes, the government has moved gradually today, though belatedly, I would say, in getting on first, summoning the DGC, the Indigo official, which they've been doing it for the past 2-3 days, to try and bring a semblance of stability in the operation, which hasn't succeeded. It's natural that Indigo cannot mount the flights required because they do not have pilots, having been put in the total disarray. Now, you can't really reboot and say from tomorrow morning, I'll have my normal flight schedule being operated. They have bungled big way. Now, government, of course, has acted now, though, as I said, belatedly, in fixing the fares. Now, the fares had gone up in a big way, not just of Indigo flights, which limited flight they were operating, but other airlines also were reaping a bonanza on it. Squeeze in capacity, increased demand, led to higher fares, astronomical fares, I would say, on all airlines. So government deserves credit. Belatedly, though, that they've come and fixed the fares. Passengers can no longer be fleeced. And this should be a message for all times to come, that should such a situation arise in future, the fare fixation must automatically come, and let government not delay these kind of process to look at it. The second is to look at, as we said, DGCA. Yesterday provided relaxation because the first thing is to mitigate the problems at the airport, flights not being operated, Indigo suffering, pilot shortage, etc. Is to relax, which is a welcome step. People may have apprehension who were looking at strictly from the perspective of pilot fatigue and the flight and duty time limitation. The priority at the moment for the government is to ensure that normalcy returns at the shortest possible time. And for that, you cannot achieve that goal unless you give relaxation on the FDTL. The third point of says that DGCA's proactiveness should have been there. They will perhaps do an analysis, just as Indigo will have to do it, that 19 years of operations, professionalism being there, India's largest carrier, what went wrong and where did they go wrong? What assumptions did they have? Once DGCA had turned down the request for any further extension and implementation of the FDTL, they ought to have curtailed the flights on their own, intimated the passengers so that the mayhem at the airport could have been avoided. Now I believe the government is suggesting to Indigo that in view of the scarcity of pilots, try and truncate your flight schedule rather than have uncertainty at the airport with the pilots. As your correspondent very rightly said, the irony is it is not restricted to the pilots or the baggages at the airport. If you go online, you can still book tickets of a cancelled flight. You are issuing boarding cards for a cancelled flight. You are booking tickets for a flight that you know will not operate. Why can't there be proper coordination between various departments of Indigo? Now, clearly, they can say, this is the first time we've gone into such a scale of disorder, such a scale of mayhem at the airport, disruption in flight schedule. We didn't have the requisite experience. Well, that is what management is all about. In peacetime, work out all your methods that in the event of such a situation, this is my remedy and this is what we'll do it. Indigo has got a very sorry figure in the eyes of the traveling public. Internationally, Indian aviation has also taken a beating because Indigo has accounts for the largest share in the domestic market at 65%.
Right. Mr. Bhargav, the point you were raising was accountability. Now, when government is now taking the remedial steps, of course, first and foremost, priority remains the travelers. Whatever needs to be done should be done. But having said that, how accountability can be fixed, since you have worked for very long in an airline and you know how it works. I mean, how come this kind of situation has happened that at the last minute, such huge number of cancellations are happening?
Let's put it this way. Which airline would like to mar its image? They built a reputation over a period of time. They have gone wrong big way. They will have to introspect, fix accountability, sack people who brought them to such a situation where the public perception of Indigo has nosedived. Now, that's one part of it. Second is to look at whether the Indigo management, knowing fully well that there were shortage of pilots, they could not have maintained a full normal flight schedule. Did they project the entire emerging scenario to DGCA? If DGCA was presenting a total scenario, but DGCA was rigid in ensuring that they will not grant extension because it had its own implications, ramifications, then DGCA will also have to take part of the blame. But as I said earlier, it's a catch-22 situation for DGCA. Pilots would have mounted an aggressive kind of a campaign against the DGCA that you are buckling under airline pressure. You are not concerned about the fatigue of the pilots. Because let's not forget, the way the new FDTL norms were introduced, pilots have been demanding for several years. Airlines were reluctant to implement. They went to the court ordered, and then in a staggered manner, DGCA ordered the implementation of new FDTL norms. So there was really no reason for Indigo to have faltered, except for misplaced, I would say, optimism that they felt DGCA will perhaps succumb to their request, kind of a thing. But DGCA also has a role to play and they also have responsibility towards the public, traveling public on safety, so they could not have done it. I think DGCA, Indigo, overestimated its own optimism, underestimated DGCA's power that it commanded, and what we have is a total khichdi of the flight schedule of Indigo.
Mr. Bhargav, how should sort out this khichdi? I mean, one by one, we need to keep the rice and the lentils separately, and we have to sort out this matter. So I want to understand, according to rules, what are the actions which can be taken on the airline? And you were mentioning about DGCA as well. How can they be held accountable?
See, it's not a question of accountability. DGCA has a role to perform. Let's be very clear about it. It's a catch-22 situation. If they had, say, for example, relaxed the FDTL norms without people realizing what kind of things we've gone through in the past 4 days, they would have been subjected to accusation that you are being soft on the airlines. But having taken a decision after the mayhem, well, DGCA can't be faulted because their first priority is to normalize operation. That's one very clear message that DGCA is giving it. As far as the accountability is concerned, let's be very clear about it. Indigo will have to take the total blame. You can't say we didn't have adequate time. As I said earlier, misplaced optimism that they will be able to arm twist DGCA into conceding it, they have gone wrong on every aspect. Now, when you say, how do you get back normalcy? Let me explain to you. For every pilot, you have 6 to 7 sets of pilots, pilot, commander, and co-pilot. Considering the fleet size of Indigo, they have 5,000 plus pilots with them. They fly, and then they are required to have the requisite rest after each flight. The number of hours they've flown, twice the number of hours they must be rested upon. How do you have the actual number of pilots here? That is why when they suspended all the flights from Delhi airport, I thought it was a very good move to rest the pilots available and to begin the next day by rebooting the total flight schedule and making the pilot available.
Mr. Bhargav, we have a paucity of time, and before we let you go, I want to understand in very short, how soon you think the problem is getting resolved? Of course, airline has given a 10 February deadline. Do you think we may see an earlier resolution?
You see, 10th December could be an optimistic figure. Now, you have to look at it. 10th normalcy with the entire flight schedule that they're currently operating? The answer is no. They cannot get the adequate number of pilots in the next 3-4 days. So either they truncate the flight schedule on their own and say, look, if I was operating 10 flights on a Mumbai-Bangalore sector, I will make do 8 flights here. Likewise, hypothetically speaking, to curtail it voluntarily. What will it achieve is that you will know exactly the number of flights you're operating. Passengers would have been informed in advance, accommodated on their other flights, and mayhem at the airport avoided. So that is how the whole process should continue and go ahead. And I'm sure DGCA and the Ministry of Civil Aviation will advise them that don't make passengers angry, don't make passengers come to the airport just because you have a misplaced optimism that I can manage my number of flights with the pilots, which you know are in short supply with you at the moment, not in adequate quantity.
All right, a fair point. Enough information should be given, and of course the systems needs to be in place. Thank you so much, Mr. Bhargav, for joining with your views at a crisis which is one of the unseen till now, one of the crises which we have not seen in aviation sector for very long. Even when there has been strikes in the past, such kind of situation has not been there. But with this, it's time to also take a look at the markets. Wall Street has closed the week on a high as S&P 500 logged its 4th straight gain, now less than 1% away from its all-time record high. A cooler than expected core TCE print up 2.8% annually strengthened expectations of a Fed rate cut next week, with markets pricing in odds at 87%. The Nasdaq rose 0.31%, the Dow added 104 points, and consumer sentiment also surprised to the upside. Back home, the Wall Street cooled off after hitting fresh highs. The Nifty snapped its 3-week winning streak dragged by aviation and healthcare sector, while small caps and mid cap ended in the red. IT surged as the week's top gainer with all constituents closing in the green, while energy lagged for the third week in a row. Auto and metal indices continued their upward momentum, but FMCG and pharma slipped into red. Let's bring in Raghav to break it down how the market panned out this week.
Right, I mean Nifty 50 hit a record high this week, but closed, by snapping its 3-week gaining streak, and mainly was dragged by Interglobal Aviation and Max Health, which closed in red as well. Speaking about the Nifty small cap that declined for the third consecutive week with this closing of this market was led by Keynes Tech and Ola Electric Mobility, which were leading the losses. Nifty mid cap index hit a record high this week, but closed in red, unfortunately, because Hitachi Energy and Wari Energies were leading the losses for this index. Nifty IT top sectoral gained advances for the fourth consecutive midweek, and Emphasis and Wipro were leading the gains for this index. IT index also hit a 5-month intraday, and all of its constituents in this particular index reported in green, which is a good indicator for the industry at large. Nifty Energy top sectoral declined for the third consecutive week, and Hitachi Energy and JSW Energy were leading the losses. Nifty Auto advanced for fourth straight week, and TVS Motors and Hero Moto were the ones leading the gains for this index. Nifty Metal advanced for the second consecutive week, and Hindustan Coppers and Nalco were the ones that were leading the gains for this index, and Nifty FMCG and Pharma closed in red in the end of this week.
Thanks, Raghav, for all those details. And a data-heavy week lies ahead for markets now. India and MFI flows and key expiries, while globally all eyes will be there on Fed rate decisions after the inflation numbers which has come in. Moreover, a packed IPO calendar will also keep Dalal Street busy, with Wakefit Corona remedies and Meesho listings are there next week. My colleague Snehi is there to tell us what to watch out for next week.
The second week of the year, which means it's time for the AMFI numbers, the monthly AMFI and SIP account numbers to come in. So around the 9th or 10th of the month, we're going to be seeing that. Other than that, the weekly expiries, yes, will be at play for both Nifty and Sensex on Tuesday and Thursday respectively. But more importantly, on Friday, all eyes are going to be on the India inflation print. The CPI number is going to be very crucial to watch out for, along with Forex reserves data that we get every Friday. So that's all the action expected back home in terms of macros. We're talking about global macros then. From the US, the JOLTS job openings numbers will be out. Very important to watch out for this ahead of the FOMC outcome next week. The two-day FOMC meeting will be beginning on the 9th, the outcome of which will be out on the 10th. The rate decision is going to be very keenly watched out for. For December 11, you have initial jobless claims and trade balance data, so watch out for that. Moving away from that, from the UK, the industrial production numbers will be out on the 12th. So that's all to track from the United Kingdom. We're shifting focus to China. 7 December, you have Forex reserves, 8 December trade data, and their inflation print will also be very keenly watched. On December 10, PPI and CPI numbers will be out. And lastly, for Japan, GDP numbers on December 8, PPI on 10, and on December 12, industrial production. So yes, the Asian markets are going to be reporting some core macroeconomic indicators, and that's going to be very important to watch out for. We're shifting focus back home once again. Let's talk about some corporate action and board meetings to watch out for. 6 December, Biocon is going to be in focus because they're going to be mulling fundraising for Biocon Biologics, so watch out for that. 8 December, NACL Industries is going to be mulling fundraising, and the recently listed Physicswala IPO. So that Physicswala Limited company is going to be coming out with its quarterly earnings. On December 11, Ashiana Housing is going to be mulling fundraising. December 12, Indian Oil Corporation Board will be meeting to mull interim dividend, and Bharat Rasayan will be trading X bonus in the ratio 1:1 and X stock split in the ratio 1:2. And lastly, Mrs. Bector's Food on December 12 will be trading X stock split in the ratio 1:5. So watch out for all of this corporate action and much more.
Thanks, Snehi, for all those details. And of course, there are many events to watch out for next week. But moving on, and pay attention to pickleball, which is currently underway in New Delhi. Bengaluru Blasters wrapped up their Indian Pickleball League campaign with a commanding 25-21 win over Capital Warriors Gurgaon in the Grand Rally. The dynamic Fook-Arjun pairing set the tone early, outpacing Gurgaon with sharp placements and fast-paced exchanges. Though Gurgaon rallied hard enough, Anila skimmed it and Daniel Jones to close the gap to 18:16, and Bengaluru rotations, which were anchored by Hink's steady aggression and Arjun Singh's clutch points, restored the control. In the final stretch, Bengaluru's composer at the net sealed match and their season finishing 5th overall with a strong closing statement. And moving on to some other news, SpaceX is launching a secondary share sale that could value company up to $800 billion, according to reports. The firm is also signaling a possible IPO as early as 2026, with Musk weighing listing Starlink as part of the move. A key Fed tracked inflation gauge, the core PCE, eased to 2.8% in September, slightly below expectations, reinforcing bets on another rate cut next week. Personal income rose 0.4%, while spending edged up 0.3%, signaling steady but cooling demand. With this, it's time for a wrap in this edition of News Now. Thanks for tuning in.